Look very carefully at this plant. If you saw it in a garden, you might think it was just a strange kind of clover, an oxalis plant growing there for decoration, or a wild plant with nothing special about it. Its leaves are small, soft, lush green, and slightly heart-shaped. Its stems creep gently across the ground. There are no large fruits on the branches, no extremely bright flowers, and no familiar vegetable shape. But the surprise is hidden beneath the soil. Under the base of this ordinary-looking plant are small, colorful tubers. They can be yellow, orange, pink, red, purple, or white. They look like tiny jewels hidden underground. And in many parts of the world, people call this plant oca, or oca from Peru. An ancient tuber from the Andes mountains of South America. What makes oca interesting is that it is not a potato, and it is not a sweet potato either. It belongs to the oxalis family, the same family as those slightly sour plants many people have seen growing in gardens. But unlike oxalis plants that are usually treated as ornamentals or weeds, oca is grown for its edible tubers. In some places, people even call it New Zealand yam, although it is not a true yam. So why is such a beautiful, edible, and curious tuber still so little known? Perhaps because oca is not in a hurry. It is not the kind of plant you grow for just a few weeks and harvest right away. It needs time. It needs a long growing season. And most importantly, it usually begins to swell its tubers strongly when the days become shorter, near the end of the season. While many other vegetables have already been harvested early, oca quietly grows its leaves, spreads gently across the ground, stores its energy, and only when the conditions are right does it begin to create its most valuable part underground. This is exactly why many first-time growers feel disappointed. They see the plant looking green and healthy all season, dig it up too early, and only find a few tiny tubers. They think the plant has failed, but in reality, they simply have not understood its rhythm. Oca is a plant of patience. If you plant it in spring, after the danger of frost has passed, it will begin growing into a low, bushy plant. Its leaves are green, soft, and beautiful, making the whole vegetable bed look more alive. Some people even grow oca in containers because it is both edible and quite charming to look at. But during the early stage, do not rush to search for tubers. The main job at this point is to give the plant loose soil, steady moisture without waterlogging, good light, and enough space so weeds do not compete too much. The soil for oca should be soft, well-drained, and rich in organic matter. If the soil is too compact, the tubers will have difficulty developing nicely. If the soil is too wet and cold, the tubers may rot. Like many other root crops, oca prefers an airy underground environment where the roots and tubers can spread gently. As the plant grows, you can mound more soil around the base, much like people do with potatoes, to protect the tubers and keep the plant more stable. But the most important thing is the timing of the harvest. Oca usually does not produce large tubers too early. The tubers develop more clearly when the days begin to shorten. So if you dig it up in the middle of the growing season, you may think there is nothing there. But if you wait until the end of the season, after the plant has had enough time to store energy, you will see the difference. When the leaves begin to weaken from the cold, that is a sign that you can start checking the tubers. However, do not leave them in soil that becomes too cold or frozen for too long, because the tubers sit fairly shallow and can be damaged by harsh conditions. In regions with a clear cold season, many people grow oca in pots or containers so they can move the plants under cover when the weather gets bad. This helps extend the growing time and allows the tubers to become larger. This is a very important tip if you want a better harvest, especially in places where autumn is short or frost arrives early. Harvesting oca is a very satisfying experience. You do not find huge tubers like potatoes. Instead, you find small, long, shiny, colorful tubers clustered near the base of the plant. Some look like little fingers, some are plumper, some curve slightly, others are long and smooth like polished stones. Once you rinse off the soil, their colors appear beautifully. This is one reason oca is perfect for video content. The moment you dig up the tubers is already enough to make viewers curious. Its flavor is also quite special. When raw or not fully cooked, the tubers can be crisp and slightly tangy, almost like they have a gentle lemon note. When cooked, the sourness becomes milder, and the tuber turns softer, richer, and closer to the texture of a starchy root vegetable. You can boil it, roast it, pan-fry it, add it to soups, stew it with other vegetables, or use it as a potato substitute in some meals. In some places, people leave oca tubers in the light for a short time after harvest to reduce the sourness and bring out more sweetness. This is a traditional treatment for many oca varieties. However, the flavor can vary depending on the variety. Some are more sour, some are milder, some are more nutty and starchy. This variety of flavors is what makes oca such an interesting crop to explore. Not only the tubers, but also the young leaves and tender shoots of oca can be eaten as greens in some places. But this part needs to be explained clearly. Because oca belongs to the oxalis family, the plant contains oxalates. This does not mean everyone must avoid it, but it should not be eaten in very large amounts, especially by people with a history of kidney stones or anyone who needs to limit foods high in oxalates. The safest approach is to treat oca as a special vegetable, to enjoy in moderation, not something to eat in large amounts every single day if your body is sensitive. The appeal of oca is not only that it is edible, it is also a story about forgotten crops. In the modern world, we are often familiar with only a few common root vegetables, such as potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, and radishes. But in many ancient cultures, people grew and used many different kinds of tubers. Some were suited to high mountain regions. Some tolerated cold better. Some had unusual colors. Some had flavors we have almost never tasted before. Oca is one of those plants. It reminds us that a garden is not only a place for familiar crops. A garden can also become a living library, where old food plants are kept alive, season after season, by ordinary hands. Every small oca tuber carries a quiet history inside it. It speaks of the Andes, of cool mountain air, and of farmers who learned which plants could survive where other crops struggled. And that is why oca feels different from many vegetables. When you grow it, you are not only planting food, you are planting a crop that asks you to slow down and observe. You watch the leaves spread. You watch the stems cover the soil. You wait while nothing dramatic seems to happen. And then, near the end, when the garden looks tired, oca begins to do the one thing it has been preparing for all along. It fills the soil with small hidden treasures. If you want to grow oca successfully, start with good tubers. Choose firm, healthy pieces that are not soft, moldy, or badly damaged. Plant them when the weather is mild and frost is no longer a threat. You do not need to bury them extremely deep. A shallow planting in loose soil is usually enough, because the plant will form its new tubers close to the surface later in the season. Give each plant enough room. Oca may look delicate at first, but once it begins to spread, the stems can cover a surprising amount of space. This is helpful because the foliage can shade the soil and reduce weeds. But if the plants are too crowded, airflow becomes poor, and the harvest may be smaller. Water is important, but too much water can become a problem. Osa likes steady moisture, but it does not like sitting in cold, wet soil. The best soil is loose, crumbly, and full of compost, but still able to drain after rain. As the plants grow, you can gently pull soil or mulch around the stems. This protects the shallow tubers from light, keeps moisture more even, and gives the plant a softer place to expand underground. Think of it like giving the plant a blanket, not burying it aggressively. The biggest mistake is harvesting too soon. Many gardeners make this mistake because they are used to crops that form quickly. They see healthy leaves and assume there must already be a large harvest below. But oki follows a different clock. It usually waits for shorter days before tuber formation becomes serious. That means the plant may look beautiful for months while the harvest is still only beginning. So when should you harvest? Watch the weather and watch the leaves. When cold nights arrive and the top growth begins to weaken, that is the moment to pay attention. If frost is light, some growers wait a little longer. But if a hard freeze is coming, do not risk losing everything. Oxa tubers are often close to the surface, and freezing soil can damage them quickly. Use your hands or a fork carefully. Start away from the center of the plant and loosen the soil slowly. Do not stab straight into the base, because many of the best tubers may be clustered right there. Lift the plant gently, shake away the loose earth, and search through the soil with your fingers. One by one, the tubers appear. Yellow ones, red ones, pink ones, pale ones, young ones, smooth ones. After harvest, do not rush to judge the flavor on the first day. Some oca varieties are sharp or lemony when freshly dug. In many traditional uses, the tubers are exposed to light for a short period after harvest. This can reduce the tangy quality and make the flavor sweeter. In the kitchen, oca can be simple. Roast it with a little oil until the skin wrinkles and the inside becomes tender. Boil it until soft. Add it to soups. Slice it into a pan with other root vegetables. Some people enjoy the fresh crispness raw, while others prefer it cooked, when the sour edge becomes softer. But remember moderation. Because OCA belongs to the oxalis family, it contains oxalates. For most people, this simply means it should be treated like many other special greens and tubers. Enjoy it as part of a varied diet, not as something to eat in huge quantities every day. People who need to limit oxalates, especially those with kidney stone concerns, should be more careful. This does not make OCA dangerous for everyone. It just means the plant should be respected and understood, and perhaps that is the lesson of oca. It is not a crop that gives everything away immediately. It hides its value. It waits for the right season. It teaches you that some foods are not built for speed, but for rhythm. A gardener who understands oca starts to think differently. Instead of asking why nothing is happening, they begin to ask what is happening quietly underground. In a world where we often chase the fastest harvest, the biggest fruit, and the most familiar vegetables, oca reminds us that forgotten crops still have something to offer. They bring diversity back to the garden. They bring color back to the soil. They bring stories back to the table. So if you have a small corner in your garden, a few containers, or even just curiosity, OCA may be worth trying. Do not expect it to behave like a potato. Do not expect instant results. Give it time, loose soil, gentle moisture, and protection near the end of the season. Then, when the leaves fade and the garden seems almost finished, dig carefully. You may find nothing impressive at first glance. Then your fingers touch something smooth. You brush away the soil, and suddenly, a bright little tuber appears. That is the magic of oca. Above the ground, it looks modest and quiet. Beneath the ground, it is colorful, ancient, edible, and surprising. A small plant, a long wait, and under the soil, a secret harvest. If you have grown oca before, share your experience below. Did your plants produce many tubers, or only a few the first time? Did the flavor remind you of potato, lemon, radish, or something completely different? And if you have never heard of oca until today, would you give this strange little Andean crop a place in your garden next season?